Hi, I'm Chantel Williams, and this is my Critical Historical Perceptions documentary. In this documentary, I interviewed 3 adults on what they remember learning in history. I interviewed 2 children on what they're currently learning in history, and I took a couple of people on the Black and Blue tour through campus, which is a tour that really well explains African American history and misperceptions that we have about our campus and just things that we don't know. And also I read the book Lies My Teacher Told Me, which explains a lot of truths of what really went on in history and what we're telling our kids instead. So that was really interesting. And you know, the first part of the documentary, when I asked adults about what they remember, I asked myself the same question. And at first, I couldn't remember anything. I remembered the AP exams. I remembered, the tests I had to take, the papers I had to write, and I remember, students around me saying, "I'm bored. Why do I have to learn this? It's over. History's done." And it's really not. And I thought about it more, and I realized I actually learned a lot about history. I went to Washington, D.C. I went to museums about ancient Egypt, about the Holocaust, and I didn't tie that to learning about history. I just thought those were fun field trips. I didn't connect it, which is really interesting. But it just goes to show that experiential learning and hands-on learning is really the best way to teach children about history, because it really immerses them in history, it engages them in history, it recreates history, and it shows them that the current events that are going on, everything in Washington D.C. and what's going on in our government, it all ties back to history. The boring, what I once thought, the boring Revolutionary War, the boring Civil War, everything we fought for, our democracy, our rights, the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, it affects me today, it affects everyone around us. And I feel like if we taught kids more about current events and gave them the raw truth, we could have more critical thinkers. And as an educator, I would like to see that happen and use that in my classroom. So I hope that you enjoy my documentary. Thank you.
The one field trip that I do remember is going to the state fair, and we actually had to go and find what the state crops were there specific activities or songs, folk songs that were related specifically to North Carolina, take multiple pictures of different animals, anything that related to the state, and then we had to make a project book about it in a group and then present it to the class.
The way, I guess they would do tests, it was just all names and dates, not really the important stuff, I guess. Not to me anyway. The ones I enjoyed were some kind of recreation of the history of it, rather than just mindless memorization.
I learned a lot from the Black and Blue tour, and a lot of the things I learned evoked a lot of emotions for me and the people I interviewed and took on the tour personally. One particular girl that I interviewed was very offended by the portrayal of our monuments. There's Silent Sam, who was a Confederate soldier, who's the first thing you see when you approach our campus, which could be very unnerving for new students or anyone who might be offended by that Southern past. And then there's the Table of the Unsung Founders, which the girl I interviewed was also really upset about, that the monument is so low to the ground, and it's a useful monument. It's a table, so people can jump on it, they can change diapers on it, which she's seen people do, and they can eat on it. I've eaten a donut on it, and I feel very bad about it, because now that I know what that table stands for and what it signifies, and that people do get offended by it, I certainly won't be eating any more donuts on it. And then there's the student body statues, which I walk by every day. They're quite creepy. You know, and they removed them from Davis Library because they just really portrayed stereotypes and didn't fully represent our diverse student body that we currently have. And that was very offensive to both of the girls that I interviewed, especially because it was put up in the 1990s, a little bit past dated from our civil rights movement. But yeah, we enjoyed it, and we're glad we learned so much about it, of Chapel Hill and our campus. What do you think the president does when he goes to work?
Help the country.
How does someone get to be president?
They have to by voting. They have to get good grades.
Both true. What I really learned and have taken away from this documentary is the importance of teaching our students the raw truth, and not just a single perspective, but a multitude of perspectives. I was reminded by a speech I had heard by Chimamanda Achebe about the dangers of teaching a single story. And you know, if you just keep telling one lie or one perspective over and over again, it becomes the truth, and it becomes like a stereotype. And I personally have fallen victim to this ethnocentrism and this heroicism of our own past politicians. You know, in nationalism and pride, it's all a very good thing until it becomes, I'm better than you and you're beneath me, which I, as an American, I've often thought that, you know, my country is the best. You know, I have friends from different countries in Africa, such as Ghana and Kenya and Nigeria, and I thought, you know, how terrible it must be, you know, with the AIDS and the wars and the crimes and, you know, fighting off lions every day. And they laughed at me when I first met them, because they were like, you know, we have cities, and lions aren't just walking around in the streets. So, again, just the single story that I've been told. I also have a friend from Russia who told me that, you know, that Russia had won World War II. And I was taken aback by that, because, you know, what I had been taught was we were the heroes, the victors of World War II. We saved France, we saved the Jewish population, and we defeated Germany. But, you know, my friend told me that, you know, Russia defeated Germany, and that America just came out of nowhere, just butted their heads in. So again, different perspectives. And as an educator, I would really love to have my students not only be critical thinkers, but global thinkers. And I would love to tie the past to current events so that they can really recreate history and understand their rights and the policies that affect them today, and domestic policies and foreign policies as well. And I think that we could create greater and stronger citizens through that. And I hope that you've enjoyed my documentary. Thank you.